This is the official podcast for Season 2 of the HBO documentary series 100 Foot Wave. I'm your host, Nicole McNamara. We've now seen the end of Season 2. So much happened in this last episode. We see Justine and Fred, we see Tony, we see Cotty, we see my brother, and find out what actually happened after being left with that cliffhanger on episode 5. I'm going to be talking with CJ and my dad a little later about everything that happened in that episode and also just growing up together. But first, we're joined by the perfect people to discuss the last episode of the season. Chris Smith, our director of 100 Foot Wave, and Zach Rothfeld, the writer and producer. Chris and Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Let's start from the beginning. Several times you've mentioned in various interviews that you had no interest in the surf world or surfing or making a surf documentary. So how did you end up following us around?
Well, it was Joe Lewis had a connection to you, Nicole, and asked me if I wanted to do a Zoom and just sort of meet you guys. And I've been around long enough to know that like you should always keep an open mind. And so it was really just like, it was almost instantaneous meeting you and Garrett on that Zoom where I was like, oh, these are interesting people. So I'm interested in spending time with them, and whatever they're doing is probably going to be interesting. Little did I know.
Yeah, it was a can of worms.
I never could have imagined it would turn into what it turned into, because you guys, I think one of the things that makes you and Garrett great is that you aren't overselling yourselves or the world or the story. You were just sort of very much yourselves. And like, it wasn't until, I don't know, it was a couple months in that we got this, like, we just kept getting footage. And once we strung it all together, it was 6 hours long. So, I mean, the original idea for this was a feature. You know, it was going to be a feature about Garrett surfing this wave. And then it ended up not being that at all. It was something totally different. But that was, you know, it's one of the things that I like the most about documentary is that is going on that journey to the unknown of not knowing exactly what it could be or where it will be. And I feel like in today's world, that's getting harder and harder to find, especially with the way that you take projects out and everyone wants to know exactly what it is. And this was almost the exact opposite of that.
How different has it been for you making season 2 versus season 1? Because in season 1, like you were saying, we just dropped a bomb of footage on you. So it was a lot of archived story. We really didn't get into the present moment until about the last 2 episodes. I
feel like the end of season 1 was really the sort of roadmap in some ways of season 2, but I think in a way that was not quite. It was a cousin, I guess. Where the first 4 episodes were really largely based in the past and sort of bringing us up to the present. And the last 2 episodes sort of were allowing you to see where Nazare ended up. I feel like the new season, with all of that sort of out of the way, it allowed us to actually live within the world that exists that, you know, was created around the last 10 years that you were there. I think that it felt like it was daunting because I think we were really proud of what we did in season 1. And at this point we were going into something that we had no idea what was going to happen or if it would be good or if there would be a story there. And it was one of those things that it exceeded all of our expectations just in terms of the way that things unfolded. But this is a good segue to bring in Zach, who was our writer and producer on the show and was on season 1 and sort of, heavily immersed in season 2. You know, Zach is the one that actually watched every frame of film from the season.
Zach, I don't think people can fully comprehend the amount of footage there is. Just for our family alone, there's hundreds of hours of footage. And now with the new characters being introduced, you know, we have a camera on Cotty, a camera on Justine, a camera on Tony. Like, there are, I would say, thousands of hours. How do you guys find the hidden stories in thousands of hours of footage with various characters?
Well, we have incredible editors that, you know, put it all together. But I think the first thing that we do when we, you know, after we've shot in Nazareth for a full season is we just try and watch as much as possible to kind of gauge what's going on with you guys and what interesting threads exist. But I do consume as much as possible to get a sense of what happens with, your family. It was definitely weird meeting you for the first time because of how much footage I watched. But in trying to introduce the new characters, I think what people fell in love with in season 1 is this drive that motivated Garrett for 10 years. We told this incredible story of what your family's accomplished. In season 2 is trying to identify new characters and new relationships where they were chasing the same thing, but for different reasons. And I think season 2, the big thing that we tried to push as much as possible is relationships. You have you and Garrett, and I think what's so incredible about that story is that it's an equal partnership. You have Tony and Ramon, father and son, Justine and Fred, couple, Michelle and Ian, Cotty and Garrett, which is an evolving relationship. And it was trying to focus on the relationships.
Garrett can be very particular. So how is it, working with us when we have such, strong emotions? Like, how do you manage us? And, telling somebody else's story and making sure that everyone is happy at the end of the day. I know how Garrett is, and I just it's a second job for sure.
I think that there's a hope that the people that are in the project that you're working on feel that it's an accurate representation of sort of what they lived, right? So I think and I think that you feel a responsibility for that. And I think that we're, cognizant of just sort of the burden of trying to tell someone's story is it's heavy in a lot of ways. So, but I think that you can't make everyone happy all the time, right? And so I think that you try to do your best and try to be honest, and hopefully you put it together in the best way possible and hope that people appreciate what you did.
I think what we try to do with every episode is think about how everything is serving a purpose and moving things forward and related to one another. And I think every episode from this season has almost its own theme. It's a mini movie of sorts. And something that we would say in the edit a lot is if someone wants to watch surfing, they can go on YouTube. But if they're gonna, be captivated by our show, they need to care about the person on the wave and what they're trying to achieve.
Is it painful for you guys when you have to leave something on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, it's very difficult because, as you know, we're capturing your lives every single day. And we're not only doing that with just you and Garrett, we're doing that with everyone else. And so the goal of the show is to basically tell the story that captures everyone's experience. And so, yeah, a lot has to go away and can't make the final edit.
Is there any story or scene that sticks out to either of you that didn't make it in that you wish did?
There is one. It was a scene that I tried to get in 5, I think. Yeah, CJ did. Well, who went? It was CJ Garrett?
CJ Garrett,
yeah.
Yeah, there was a trip to Spain that was good.
Oh, yeah, right on New Year's.
Yeah, the San Pedro trip.
Yeah. I know, so much stuff got left out. Makes me sad.
Oh, my favorite was Garrett cutting down the Christmas tree. I tried to put it in.
That was almost like a month-long thing in our house, like the cutting down of the Christmas tree and is it going to fit in our house? And then they came with this they went out into Pride and Norte, cut down this huge tree. Huge. It was like the scene from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where he puts the tree in the house and then the squirrel pops out. He literally had to tie strings to all 4 corners of the ceiling to hold this tree up in our house. Yeah, I was bummed that didn't make it in. So much good stuff. It's like, how do we make a side mini story? I don't know.
It's a constant problem with this show is just that there is so much and it's very difficult to try to understand how to consolidate that amount of material into something.
I can't even imagine because there is so much gold.
It's difficult, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Going back to the ayahuasca trip, that also would have been incredible to include. I just had the baby they got this invitation to go to Spain for this. I think they were gone 3 days on an ayahuasca ceremony. And Beryl even went, I believe, right? Beryl was there.
He was there.
Yeah. They went on this journey. I never got to see the footage, and, I only heard the stories. Was there anything in particular? What was it that you wished you could have included?
I think my favorite image there is, we talked to CJ about the trip, and he's talking about the spiritual aspects of it. And we just have this B-roll of Beryl climbing a tree in the woods. And when we interviewed Garrett, he told us that they basically wanted Beryl to feel included, so they just gave him like regular iced tea to drink. And it was very, very cute.
Oh, my sweet boy. So much happened in this last episode. For Tony, there was a completion of his arc.
I mean, Tony's arc is this incredible. To me, it reminds me of like a 70s movie where they win, but they don't win. Like it's like Rocky at the end of Rocky. It's like he doesn't win the boxing match, but you still feel like he won. And I feel like with Tony, he didn't get the chance that he was, all season he wants to surf the contest. He doesn't even get to surf one wave, yet by the end of the episode, it still feels like he's a winner, because of what unfolds. But like, to me, that was like, you couldn't have scripted. I think that's the thing that surprised me most about season 2 is if you were a screenwriter, I don't think you could have written a better story for the way that all the characters' arcs sort of unfolded throughout the 2 years that we filmed.
So you guys left episode 5 on a cliffhanger. So you leave CJ literally lost at sea. Can you talk about that incident and how you decided to end the season with that? Well, I mean, that was the end of the season, really, right?
I mean, I think what was so interesting about CJ is like he came back to Nazare, and in our first interview when he came back to Nazare, he said he wasn't going to surf that year.
Yeah.
And so it was so interesting to just see his arc, especially from the first 3 episodes into the 4th and then into the 5th. It just sort of like he changed so much in terms of where his head was at in terms of surfing from episode 1 all the way through 6. And it was not, I mean, I think everyone wants more CJ in the show.
Yeah. So
it was nice that, to see that. I guess the question now is where is he at today? Is he surfing again?
That's a great question. We're going to talk to him later in this podcast episode, so you'll have to give it a listen, Chris.
All right.
Find out.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Chris and Zach, for finding the time between all of our hectic schedules to talk with me about what it's been like making this docuseries and this final episode.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, I sat down with my dad and CJ to talk about every detail of the accident you see in episode 6.
Well, you ready? What are we waiting for?
Well, today I get to speak with 2 of my favorite people, my brother, CJ Macias, and my father, Carlos Macias. Welcome to my podcast, guys.
Hello. You look lovely.
Yeah, you really do.
I
if
love your
only
dress.
they could have been recording our drive over here.
Well, now we get to keep it rolling as it never ends. There is no end in sight.
Am I going to be graded on this?
People can review. Here we are on the 100-Foot Wave Companion Podcast to talk about episode 6, the final episode of season 2. And it was a doozy, to say the least. Episode 6, which everyone just watched, the finale of season 2, opens with CJ very zen. I believe you are in Peru.
From Vision Quest? That was
Vision
in Sicily.
Quest. And he's clearly reflecting on life in this image. And then it flashes to the wipeout that we saw at the end of episode 5, but now we see CJ, and he opens with talking about what he experienced. So CJ, can you please do your best to walk us through that wave from whatever you remember? Like, do you remember as early as like the walkie-talkie communication of one coming? Because earlier in that session, you were on fire. It was like your spark was clearly lit, and you were in the zone, and you were in your place. You were embodying you, and you were shining bright. And then this wave comes. So can you please talk us through it?
Again.
Again and again.
One more time.
Yeah,
Last time.
at least. And I'm still living it, you know. It's in my body still in ways. The evening before, I caught the biggest wave of my life up until that point. And I was like, okay, the job's done. I rode my 100-foot wave, and I felt really clear that evening. And then the next morning, I felt just as clear and solid and confident. And then there was this edge of like, we're going to be ramping it up today. And I started getting waves and felt great. And it was also like the biggest waves I ever rode. I was flying faster. You know, at the end of the waves, I was kind of like almost falling off from going so fast. And you called it on the walkie-talkie, big set coming in. And it's like, okay, it's coming. As soon as we popped over the lump and saw the first wave directly, it was just like clear. It was like, yep, let's do it. We're doing it. Because you could see like the wedge coming, that it was going to line up perfectly. So Garrett, pulled me up. He whipped me and put me on the line. And when I let go, it's really difficult to describe at this point, honestly, how much attention and awareness was in that moment for me. And as I'm realizing, reflecting, not just for me within myself, because I'm on this wave, I got to pay attention, it's life or death, but because of everyone watching. I see now in hindsight, I really felt in the moment, you can feel all of that attention. I pretty much was just in trance of the ocean at that moment. And I didn't like whip myself fast and aggressive to really like power surf through the thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to ride it in the wave. And I let myself go enough, and I start finding my way on the peak. And as the wedge is connecting, and it started to double up, and it seemed to just start like sucking me up the wave, up the wave, up the wave. And like time is slowing down because I'm losing speed, which is not what you want. And I'm also getting higher up in sea level. There was this moment that almost felt like I wasn't moving. And in that frozen moment, I was like, all right, here we go. And the wave, the rush, as it like whoosh, let me down, it was like lost my stomach right in the beginning. It felt like almost airdrop. And then I'm connected on the wave, but just flying straight down. And I could like feel, I had like a fisheye wide angle perspective, even though I'm just looking right at the nose of my board. And I could like really feel Laurent on the ski and them filming there. And I could feel like the other ski, Cotty, and them were safety watching, and like, and then I start bombing down this thing, and it's just so fast. I'm trying to hold my rail. It's so steep. I was flashing back actually to a couple waves, being a little kid, a little 12, 13-year-old kid. One I caught in Costa Rica, one I caught at Reef Road, like when I would go out with dad and paddle into like the biggest wave of my life at the time, which always was incremental. And it was just like, almost like, this is too much. And I just start flying down this thing uncontrollably. All my weight's on my heels. I've never gone this fast on a surfboard. I start to see the shadow of the whitewash coming over me. And I'm thinking, okay, here it comes. The whitewater is going to hit me. You got to make it through this whitewater push. And then maybe you can like make a bottom turn and get out into safety to get in front of this thing. And the shadow comes, then all of a sudden it's white. I feel pushing me on the board. I feel the white water lift me up. I've got my arms out, holding them down, just like life or death running through, like, don't fall here, don't fall here, don't fall here. Every millisecond further I made it, I felt like, okay, I'm a little better off than falling at the top, right, and going over the falls. Somehow, miraculously, all of a sudden I start to see light through the whitewash. And I just think, oh my God, I made it. I'm making it. And then my board reconnects with the flat water, and I'm going like maybe 60 miles an hour so fast. And then that first initial smack was just so violent. It like knocked the wind out of me. It ripped me into just submission, and I was just full wet noodle, just taking it, and immediately just went there. Okay, this is bad. Just wait. Trying to pull the inflation, not able to. My right arm isn't working. I didn't realize yet at the time, and like it's just so violent. Then at one point I realized it went off already. The inflation went off on impact, which I was borrowing Cotty's vest, and he warned me about that it goes off on impact. So I was lucky in this moment, and it just pounded. Because when it finally let go and went still, I had the pressure in my ears. It like busted my eardrum. I was in deep water. Felt like another, 10 seconds just to float up to the surface. And then I, looked up, and before I could even get a breath or realize what's going on, the next wave was right there on my head, and it was a quick and I was just seeing stars already, and my elbow was hurting. It felt like I got some kind of stinger, and all the thoughts just started running through my head at that point. Like, oh wow, this is bad. Okay, like what if I pass out? If I pass out, is my body just going to take a breath of air and then I'll drown? Like, okay, don't do that. Gotta stay awake. All the thoughts. It was literally like full, life review. I was thinking about everything, thinking about the show or shooting for the show. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm like hucking myself off this wave. Like, is this for this show? It was like thoughts of blame, of like, oh, well, it was like not the right way. Like anything came through so quickly, and it all got washed away. Like all the thoughts, none of it mattered. I just connected with what mattered. And at that point, my arm didn't even really matter as much as staying alive mattered. So the pain I'm experiencing and like trying to grab my arm and hold it, I had to let that go. And I had to just like receive all the pain I was feeling in that moment in order to channel all my energy to keep my breath sealed so that I didn't die. Because I could feel my own love for my own life and wanting to live for sure. Like the body wants to live, whatever our mind thinks, and we get depressed and this stuff, and I do it all the time and everything, but like our body wants to live. So that was kicking in, of course. And then even deeper, I was like, okay, my arm's broken, but my spine's okay. All right, I'm all right. My spine's all right. It's not like I'm not gonna be able to walk or I broke my back. Then I start thinking about everybody up on the cliff, thinking about you, Nicole, up there. My parents, Dad, you were there. Pavana's up there, my lady, and like the kids, everybody watching. And I'm just thinking, wow, they must be really worried about me as I'm underwater getting pounded. And I'm like, I'm in bad shape, but I'm okay. I'm trying to send the message. And the near-death experience went on. I could, talk forever about it. So I'll take a break and see like what you want to hear. But it's deep with me all the time. And the reminder is just like gratitude for life. And we went through so much that winter, right? That stuff was all coming into perspective as I was thinking about what matters. Like I'm out here on this wave when I could just be hanging with Mom on the cliff. She's been in the hospital. She just got out of the hospital. All these things, right? It's like, oh, thanks for the space to unload that. Yeah, it's intense.
A little backstory of me going through this. I had just given birth to Faye, my new baby, who we all know what I went through from episode 4. She was 3 weeks old, and I believe in practicing the first 40 days, which means you're not supposed to really leave the house for 40 days. You're supposed to rest and recuperate and get back your chi so that you can be a mother. But this swell pops up, and, my 40 days aren't up yet, but I was adamant. I'm like, I'm going to the lighthouse. This is going to be the 100-foot wave day. I'm doing safety. I couldn't even imagine somebody else doing it and not being there. So I had baby Faye strapped onto my chest in a baby carrier. And, we're up on the lighthouse doing our thing. And, people ask me all the time, don't you get scared, Garrett, surfing those waves? And my answer is always the same. I've never once been really worried about Garrett whatsoever, but the idea of you surfing those waves, sometimes I can't even handle. I can't even watch. So it makes me sick. So I'm up there, and, it was funny to hear you saying how you felt that, every moment was just hanging on. To me, it looked like you were really surfing the wave, that you had intention in how you were surfing it. Because at one point, it was almost like you were cutting back, and I'm like, what the freak? He's going to go he's going to go to the right? Like, what is he, crazy? I'm like, no, the other way. Because it was like he was drawing a line to, almost in my mind, get barreled.
I was trying to get barreled.
Yeah, so I'm like, what is he doing? So I'm up there, you're on this wave, I think you're trying to get barreled, which I think is absolutely insane. And I'm just like, hold on. And Pavana's there with the binoculars, and Beryl's there, and you're making it, and then you don't make it. And the whole cliff, like you were saying, it's this energy of everyone. The whole cliff just goes, oh. I'm watching because I have an idea of where you're about to pop up. I see you pop up. I see you take that breath. I tell everybody on the radio, where you are and that you're going to pop up. And then I never see you again. Like, I never spot you. It's somebody else. It's the guys on the beach that end up seeing you in the shore break. That's who calls you in. Those are the people who spotted you. All the way up, like, a mile up the beach?
3/4 of a mile.
So I take my job really seriously, and I'm just wondering how I missed you. Do you have any recollection of, after that second wave landed on your head, when you popped up to get another breath of air, how far down the beach you already were?
Yeah, after the second wave, when I popped up, I had no idea how far I was. There was nothing in sight. All it was white water. I looked one way, I almost didn't even see the cliff. And then one way was white water, and it was the beach. The other way was just whitewash, and it was waves. I didn't see any skis anywhere. So I could have gotten washed pretty far. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was the waves that I took on the head were world record contenders that Lucas and Nick Von Rupp were on. I must have been moving as much sideways as in towards the beach on that first one or two. Yeah, I saw nothing but white water until I looked and saw what I thought was my broken arm just like flopping, hitting me in the side of the head.
Well, for another perspective, Dad, you were there because the baby had just been born, and, we think we've all made it through. Mom's out of the hospital, the baby was born, I'm alive, the baby's alive, and now we can just enjoy.
So when I saw CJ having so much fun, and I saw the beautiful day, it was like a spectacle. It was like an arena, and it was beautiful, these beautiful waves, and CJ was surfing really well and all this stuff. I called Mom and I said, you have to come here. You got to watch this. This is like a once in a lifetime thing. So she decides to come, and we're walking back. And as we're walking down the hill to the lighthouse, I see this wave just peek up A-frame right there in the point. And I see CJ and Garrett, and I could recognize them by those crazy helmets they have. And I said to Mom, oh, that's them. And as soon as he, takes off and I see the wave going, I'm going, go left, in my mind. And then when I see him eat it, it's like I felt like throwing up. After two waves and everybody looking and nobody said, oh, I saw him or anything. It's just like they couldn't see him. I thought he was gone. So I took off running, went up the lighthouse. And when I got up to the lighthouse, Lino's the one that told me, he's okay. They found him. He's up the beach. And then I looked up the beach and I saw the commotion on the beach. So I said, okay, at least he's beach. I didn't know. So then it was like, how do I get back? So by the time we got back, he was already on the ambulance.
I think I remember seeing you. Yeah, right before I was getting in the ambulance, actually. It was amazing that everyone had made it. Like, the family was there. Thea was giving me Reiki.
So do you remember that, or do you just remember the story of Thea giving you Reiki?
No, I
could you process?
You guys told me that she was giving me Reiki, but I saw her face. I heard it was like, Thea's here, and she's like, Uncle E, and they're like, you guys are like, she's giving you Reiki, and I just like thought about it. I saw her. I got to see like everyone's face. It was special. Everyone was like giving me the like
attention.
Yes.
At any point, did you think you weren't going to make it?
I was close to thinking I might not make it right on that second wave hold down, but I was still like, just stay conscious. You're going to float up. You're going to make it. I thought even if like I pass out, they're going to bring me to life, you know?
Which is Garrett's theory. He always says,
Yeah, you're going to float up to the top, right?
I'll bring you back. A litlittle kiss, and we're all good.
Yeah. So.
But what happens if you don't find the person? There's no kiss.
There's no kiss.
So, you're talking about family and how we were all there. I don't think most people know this. It touches on it a little bit on the show, but you have to be really paying attention to figure it out. But we all live together. Yes, if you could see my dad's eyes, they're getting big. We all live together in Hawaii. There's one big house down in the front that my nuclear family lives in. Garrett, myself, and my children. Right underneath is my father and my mother, Nona and Papa. They didn't do a really good job soundproofing the floors, so it's like a Thunderdome in my parents' house with the kids and Garrett every day. And then towards the back end, the mountain side of the property, my brother and his lady, Pavana, they live in the tiny house that Garrett and I and the kids used to live in. And we have a few other apartments there, so we have a nice little community going. But yes, we all live together. And for me, I know CJ's experience and my father's experience are going to be epically different than mine. But growing up, I'm a very strong-willed woman. And growing up, I could not wait till I was 18 years old so I could leave the house and be on my own and get to college and just be free. I have just wanted this freedom my whole life, and I couldn't wait till 18 to have this freedom from my parents and from my family. And now we all live together again. So it's like this big cosmic joke. And, I'm sure at times, Dad, you still want to protect me with control and show your love through control, but you can't. You have to kind of release it a little bit.
I can't control you. I can control your kids a little. But you're too far gone.
Well, how is it for you living with your adult children?
It's got its glorious moments, and it also has its moments that are not so glorious. But if I throw everything in the soup, I think it's an opportunity that I'm going to make the most out of it.
Nice. CJ, in this whole situation, it makes sense. Okay. The one child is having their first grandkid. The grandparents want to be around their new grandbaby. So, they move to be near their grandkids. That makes complete sense. It happens often. But CJ, you don't have to live with us. So, what has called you to stay with us?
I haven't really asked myself this question, so I really appreciate it. Well, I think pretty much from the get-go, I just wanted to be included with the family and, be able to join in on what either my very cool papa or my super cool sister were up to at the time. And I just felt like, I was often trying to plug in and keep everyone together and keep everyone happy. And then people want to go off and do their own thing, which as I grow, I totally get, and I still do want that for myself. And I just, once in my journey really seems to be so much about really keeping the peace, right? It's been so much just wanting to have the reflected love of my family who I love so much, looking up to specifically you two, and like mom, you know, and mom's great and she loves us, but I guess I wasn't trying to really earn her love. You guys are more hard to get, so I guess I chase you guys around because you're playing hard to get, whereas Nona's just giving it all up.
She's pure love.
Pure love. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, we all are.
Yeah. So then in my journey where I was at the time, I had gotten injured, and my pro athletic career wasn't working anymore, that I may or may not have started to get Papa's, you know, validation and approval, you know. He invited me to play a sport to go get a college scholarship. So I'm really grateful, and got into volleyball, and I really love it. I loved it as a sport, and I could feel where it was a competitive outlet, and I actually wasn't 100% clear on my competitiveness, you know, like it's just a little too much like, yeah, kill those guys, you know, and right. So
you were so good at it.
I was so good. So it's a place where I get celebrated and rewarded for expressing my power. Where as a child, I felt if I were to express my power, maybe it was challenging to some other power sources, or, you know, it just landed in a different way. So now I have this clear outlet of athleticism where like I dominate, and I loved it so much for those different reasons, and had a beautiful volleyball career, and then injured myself once I crossed it up with surfing. And once I went to Majeure this first time, and I get a hit with the jet ski, and then I go back to volley, and I end up blowing out my back, right? And the whole story that we've learned, and really I've just since then been on the healing journey. And the healing journey really to me is like, how do we evolve? What am I really here for? What am I doing? So when I was really praying hard, I was like, what am I doing here? My family's in Hawaii. I don't have kids. My sister's got these beautiful little kids that if I start trying to do something else, I'm going to blink and those kids are going to be grown up. And it's like, do I need to like try to make my family and have my own kids, or like, wow, I have a family, and just getting to be together so often. Like it really is beautiful.
Going back to our childhood, you were talking about your volleyball career. It started because Dad told you.
He asked me?
No, I believe back then he told you. We were driving here in the car, which is when we really should have been recording. But he said something like, I told them. No. I said, no.
I said, do you want to continue surfing?
You forced him. My father forced my brother. It was a force.
You can't force it.
At that age.
I persuaded him.
No, you were
Either
like.
you pick a sport or you don't surf anymore.
Okay, yeah.
So he picked the sport.
My point in the story is that you required him to pick a sport. And me, you just didn't do that. So I love my life. My life is amazing. So really, I wouldn't change a thing. But
and
the famous but, yeah. But I see CJ and I'm not jealous, but I'm just curious why him and not me.
You didn't come with a handbook. And I've made many mistakes in child rearing. And when I should have been getting close to you when you were a little girl, I was totally busy with other things. And I never got close to you. And I apologize for that. But when the sport thing came, you were so rebellious towards me, authority. Whatever I said had to be something different. And you were already so distant that the last thing I wanted to do was distance you anymore.
Great answer. I appreciate that and I accept that. Before Dad persuaded you to choose a sport, did you have dreams of being a professional surfer or making surfing a career?
Yeah, absolutely. I considered that for sure. I was surfing competitively when I was 12, 13, had my couple little sponsors, you know, J&C, Jesus Christ Sportswear. And I
was your biggest sponsor.
You were my biggest sponsor.
Jeez.
So how come did you not think he could have a professional surfing career, or how come you didn't like encourage that more?
Because I wanted him to get more of an education so that if he didn't have surfing, he could rely on his mind. That's only because out of experience, I know how selfish and how irresponsible the surfing addiction can be to one's life.
Yes. Any young girl that I meet, I always tell them my Piper, our neighbor, she's actually keeping an ongoing list of Nicole's life rules. It's pretty funny. I don't let her show it to anybody because it's like really funny. But one of them on there is don't date or marry a surfer. Because it truly is. It is one of, if not the most selfish hobby, sport, passion.
Yep. But I have to say that it's the most incredible feeling in the world. I've never done any skydiving, but it's got to be. I don't know if there's anything out there that can top surfing. I mean, when they try to do car commercials and all kind of commercials, they don't put a guy skydiving. They put a guy surfing. It's a sport of kings.
Dad, would you ever like to ride a big wave? Because we'll get you one.
I know I can ride it. I'm not so sure I can survive the wipeout if I get wiped out.
I feel you.
On a wave that big. My opportunity, the first time that I went to Majeure, what's his name, Randy, the body glove guy?
Yeah.
Randy, I met him at the Surf Expo in Orlando, and I was doing the trash picking and stuff like that. So, we hit it off, and, Nazareth came up and he goes, I'm going to set you up with your own wetsuit, so you got your wetsuit. And so he got me my wetsuit, full suit with my hoodie, the gloves, the booty, the whole thing. So I was really excited going to Nazareth. And I've got pictures of me surfing, 20-foot faces, So I thought I was a big wave surfer. The days and the 2 weeks we were there was only really good waves one day. And they went out and Garrett said, whenever you're ready, just call me on the walkie-talkie and I'll come to the beach, pick you up. So we go to the lighthouse and it wasn't too early. It was like 8:30, 9, still some foggy and offshore breeze, beautiful conditions. And waves up as far as the eye could see. And you could tell they were big, but you couldn't tell how big they were. And then Garrett and Cody showed up. And then when they showed up and you could see the size of the ski on the waves, that's when you could really tell. So Garrett and Cody, they were surfing for like about an hour or so. And they were just trading waves one after the other, really nice waves. I mean, I said, well, let me think to myself, let me put the wetsuit to go out. And the moment that the thought of putting the wetsuit came to my mind is my stomach just started like nutting up like I wanted to throw up. And mom kind of noticed, something was going on. She goes, what's the matter? And I said, no, I was thinking putting the wetsuit on, but then I got this feel. And she goes, well, don't go out. And I say, but I got to go. I came this far, this and that. I'm a chicken. If I don't go out, look at the waves. They're so good, this and that. She goes, well, and then few moments later, I think again about doing the wetsuit thing, and the third time, I literally had a little something come up my throat, and I told Mom, I said, I can't do it. The smallest wave that day was 30 feet. It was like 30 to 60, and I just knew I wasn't in shape.
Well, it's important to listen to your body. Good job.
And that day, I realized where the expression "listen to your gut feeling" comes from. Yeah. It was like just the thought of it, I wanted to throw up. In Hawaii, like big, 10, 12 foot sunset, this and that. But after my last injury, it's like I don't have to prove anything. I got the couple of photo ops that I wanted. So now just fun stuff.
I'm glad you've come to terms with, where you're at with big wave surfing.
I want to surf with you.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Let's I'm excited for that as soon as Faye's a little bit older and I have more time. Dad's come to peace with his big wave surfing career. And at the end of this episode, of episode 6, it seems like you're pretty done with your surfing career. Also, might we be wrong, and might we see you back out there surfing big waves again?
Yeah, absolutely. You might be wrong. And I'm feeling very inspired at Papa's listening to his gut and getting to hang it up, and me keeping the towel hung up. And the truth is, I don't know if I can stay out of it, It's so good. I'm smarter. I'm channeling my energies into designing my life so that I can feel clear and good, so that I'm not locked in on a size. I've got to go catch this wave. I've proven it. I went straight down the craziest wave I could find.
Possibly the 100-foot wave.
Possibly the 100-foot wave. I never got a measurement. They measured everyone's waves, and the one I never got a measurement back, so I don't know.
Who's ever out there measuring those waves? Could we please get a measurement?
Just send it to me, just for me, please. Yeah, so I did the thing, and I feel very much like, just fun. And man, when you start dreaming up buttery, big conditions, it can be fun, and I don't want to spoil anything beyond this season. I'll be out there again at some point at the right moment.
Before we wrap today's show, we have one more bonus clip to share. This is from a dinner we had to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Garrett's record-breaking wave at Majeure.
We're going for a little surprise celebration. Woo!
10 years, huh?
What a time.
Yeah. Flew by, huh? Flew right on by.
10 years. It's 10 years today since Garrett got his world record. Or the wave. Didn't get the world record till a few months later. But, it's been quite personal to me. It was a really cool thing to be involved in, Especially at that point, because at that point I was still beach lifeguarding, plumbing. And to have, Garrett, Nicole, CJ and everyone, my friendship with them, it's definitely been a big part of my career, my surfing career. You wouldn't in a million years thought things would pan out how they have.
Salute to the water. Provide it all.
Cheers, Joe.
Carlos sat down pretty quick. Challenging him. Yeah.
If you had to put me any other way, I wouldn't have went to the bottom and it wouldn't have been anything.
Well, if it wasn't, I'd be in Barnstable fixing toilets.
Or in your banana hammock, chasing kids around on the beach.
This has been the official companion podcast for 100-Foot Wave, and I'm your host, Nicole McNamara. It's been an incredible honor to record these last 6 episodes and have you know a little bit more about me, about all the different stories, and I hope each and every one of you have found a little nugget that makes life a little bit more beautiful for you.
This has been the official companion podcast for 100-Foot Wave. It's produced by HBO and Topic Studios in association with Amplify Pictures and Library Films. Our host is Nicole McNamara. Executive producers are Christy Gressman, Jenny Bedusa, Maria Zuckerman, Joe Lewis, and Michael Gluckstadt. It's produced and edited by Jasmine Morris and Grant Stewart. Michelle Lance is our supervising producer. Ken Jacobson and Michael Merrill from Top Docs are consulting producers. Mark Chan is our coordinating producer. The show is mixed by Robert Ashley. For Topic Studios, post-production, Ethan Light. Communications, Jeannie Kiedis and Dan Goldberg. Marketing, Jen Robertson. Business and Legal Affairs, Zach Locke and Trevor Paul. Production Counsel, Ryan Mock. Production Finance, Vince Gonzalez and Beatrice Chisholm. Production music is courtesy of HBO. You can watch all episodes of 100-Foot Wave now on Max.
HBO Max becomes Max, starting May 23rd.